We are talking today with Rick Gillis, who's a Lethbridge. You're a visual artist, a writer. What else are you?
Visual artist, performing artist. I've worked with Darcy and the group that we put together that performing art group, and I've performed as my alter ego, which is Dr. Oftenhazy.
Oh.
Which started kind of being a bit of a joke because it was part of an art thing we did, which wasn't performance related, but I created this character, Dr. Oftenhazy, and it actually fooled a few people. And I thought, I'm going to just go with that, you know?
Yeah.
So I've actually, through this performance part, I've developed Dr. Oftenhazy. We haven't done much in the last few years, but we've actually performed in Edmonton and Calgary and here. But along with Dr. Oftenhazy, I actually created a company called Zenko Core, which over the years has produced all kinds of really rubbishy stuff. Which doesn't,
like, what do you mean by rubbishy?
Doesn't work. It doesn't food products. And so that
on purpose.
It's kind of a minor part of what I do, but it's mostly visual and see you've got the one piece over there.
Yes, I do have, and I'll put it at the end of the video. I'll have to show it. Yeah. It's one of my favorite things in here.
Yeah, it's just you know, what I'm really liking is I don't kind of put myself into anything other than, gee, I want to do that. So that bit of work came out of that. Like I want to do collage montage, and yesterday actually I just finished setting up a show in the display case at Casa. So that's going to be on. That's going to be on starting next week, I guess.
We'll have to have a link in the above or below that sort of says when you can go and see it, right? Because with COVID, there's different things with the gallery. So to make sure people can go and have a look. Yeah,
I think they've done away with before you used to have to phone ahead and make a reservation.
Oh, okay.
And I think they've kind of lightened it off now a little bit. Like everybody has to wear a mask, of course, because you're in a public building. But it's essentially one entrance you can come in, and you have to have your mask on, and then you I think they kind of control it a little bit.
Yeah.
But it isn't like, gee, you have to make an appointment to come in and see it. So that's kind of good.
It's nice.
It's
kind of
just
nice
relaxing
to be able
it a little bit, you know, and to making it, but still controlling it. So
I think if we were wearing our masks and we're not in big huge groups, then we're okay, right? Sounds like. So what's that show? Tell me what that show is.
Well, that one is basically, if you're living in Lethbridge, you're probably familiar with a thing called Rust Rock Cathedral, or alternately known as the Thing.
Yeah.
And it's down in River Bottom, and it was built years ago by some university students.
Oh, was that what it was?
Who I know who it is.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And they built it out of all the trash that they found in the river bottom.
Yeah.
And over the years, it's
was
just
it
grown.
For one of Carl Granzo's classes?
I don't know.
Carl Granzo was our one of the professors at the University of Lethbridge, and he taught the environmental art and outdoor art class. So there was a lot of stuff happening in nature.
Yeah. Well, it's probably, if he wasn't taking part in it, I'm sure that he may have been an inspiring person to do it, because I kind of think I know who it is by their, you know, kind of facetious denial. So anyway, and you know what? If they want it to remain that way, that's fine. So. Anyway, back to where we were. We went down 3 years ago, I guess. Yeah, about 3 years ago. And we're doing this thing with our group, Darcy, and we're doing a performance piece down there, like checking to see if this thing was haunted or anything.
Yeah.
So we were doing all this kind of stuff. But when I was down there, I noticed that people over the years had taken dolls, just dolls, and they'd stuck them inside, it's all this wire and metal work and wood and all.
So
and
that stuff wasn't original then? That was as people have been adding to it?
As they built onto it,
okay.
yeah. So now it's about 12 feet tall. And have you been down to see it?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, you should see it.
Yeah,
it's quite.
I'll have to.
It's kind of neat because you're walking through these aspens, like the thing is just loaded with aspens, and you're walking along, and there's a lot of biker trails down there.
Yeah.
But you're walking around, and it's where is this, and you come around the corner, and there it is. It's just, especially in the summer, like basically when you just go down in the summer, and there it is. It's just, just there.
Wow.
And it's quite striking, and of course, people that are involved in art in the city have said that no, this is a piece of art.
Yeah.
The people that actually are responsible for the river bottom area and it's just like Saskatchewan watershed or something they call themselves.
Oh, really?
Anyway, it got some press for a while, and an unsigned letter came from the Saskatchewan watershed that we have to go in and plow that thing down and get rid of it. So nothing's ever happened.
Yeah.
No, it's still there. Nobody's done anything. Everybody's just like kept it quiet, and so I was tossed with doing this show because what I did was I just found it fascinating and a little bit bizarre. I've got a sense for the bizarre.
Yeah.
So I found it kind of bizarre. So I started photographing these dolls right in their environment. I didn't move them or anything. Wherever they were, I photographed them, even if they were upside down. And then I went back the following year, and there were some new ones there. Some people had removed the ones I'd photographed already.
Huh.
And then I went back last year. I just went once per year and I did 3 sets of photographs. So I've got like 40 dolls that I've photographed.
Oh, wow.
And they're just, I just found them so striking and unique. So that's what this show's about. And it's all, so then I went out and went to secondhand stores and garage sales, and I found all these just random frames and put them all in these random frames. So it's hanging there now. There's 40 of them sitting there, and they're all done in kind of like a salon style. They're just there, like. In fact, we hung them.
So are they in like kind of the U shape that area is, or did you hang them all?
I hung them all on one wall.
Nice.
And they're all like.
Yeah.
So we got done doing this, and of course I was just hanging them initially for position, so they're all crooked.
Yeah.
And so Aaron came by. He works there, and he said, "That's really cool." I said, "Yeah, well, we haven't straightened them out yet, so
yeah,
I don't know if you should." so that got me thinking. So Darcy came by and I said, "What do you think?" I said, should we just leave it like so random, like?"
Yeah.
And so we had this like discussion, and then a lady came up the stairs, and so let's get some opinion of somebody else. So she says, "Well, I'm a really orderly person." She says, "I like to have my pictures like nice and straight and level."
Yeah.
She says, "However," she says, "this is so random that," she says, I like it. So I think we're at a point where we're just going to leave it that way. I don't know.
Well, I mean, in a way, though, that's how you found them, in that same sort of environment, right?
And that's exactly what it's sort of about. Is like, this is how this whole thing is totally random. The frames are random. The setting for it is so random, and now it's hanging on the wall, and that's random. So I think that's where I'll go back midweek next week and have a second go
See
at
how
it.
you feel.
And of course, then I'll take Jean down.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, has she seen it yet?
I told her about it yesterday, and she says, "Oh, I don't want to see it." No, I'll see it when it's open. Like,
yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay. Like, she's, I do value her input, even though oftentimes we're like this about it, because we're like two completely opposite personalities. Eh?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's that, and so yeah, I'm still doing a lot of painting though. So, yeah. It's.
Well, and then right now you have your latest book that just came out, right?
Yeah, the chair. Yeah.
So I do have it here.
Yeah.
A red chair.
Okay.
Which I of course loved reading the story about the red chair because you borrowed my chair for the book. Yeah. So that was really neat, and I saw myself in the acknowledgments, and I was like, oh, but I loved reading them, and I was talking to John because a collection of short stories. So John Saville that owns the gallery where we're at, and he said, oh, have you read it? And I said, well, I haven't finished, but I'm reading it. And I was just saying how nice it is, like for a cafe or something, right?
Yeah.
Because I love reading, like cafe, or Paul and I sometimes will go to the pub or something, right?
Yeah,
and then we'll have our drinks and we'll both be in our books, but it's kind of nice. And I kind of like that because they're interesting and keep you engaged, but you kind of have those little spots.
You're not picking up a big thick book and saying, geez, I got to make I'm a real slow reader, so like, but you pick up a novel or something like those other two, and you say, okay, I got to make a commitment to reading this thing over 2 weeks maybe. That's the way it'd be me. Yeah. And so it's the short story idea. Just I'd had a couple written, you know, just and so I said I kind of like this. I like there's challenges to it because you've got to get things said. You can't mess around with flowery.
No, often it's much harder.
You got to get right. Yeah. Which kind of sort of appealed to my writing style because my background, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but my background is journalism. So.
Oh, I wasn't.
Yeah. No. So I've been a reporter writer for a big part of my life. Oh. So that's like meat and potato stuff, you know, get right to the meat of it and be done with it. So my writing kind of reflects that lack of, I just can't stand flowery, over descriptive stuff. It just like, come on, get to it.
I don't know. I mean, because I never thought about it when I was reading it, so I never thought if it was, but it is so descriptive, I feel like I'm there. Yeah, so you have the description is still so rich that I feel like that. So now that you say that, I recognize there isn't a lot of flowery, but the words you do use are very impactful, which I guess when you're looking at a press background.
Yeah. Well, and it was a way different challenge to write a collection of short stories than it is to write, like these two kind of, each one was done in a different sort of fashion, but they just kind of, your idea just flows along and you get, into the middle and you get to the end and but this one is like, you've just got to, tighten it up. You got to know exactly where you're going. Like they're all different lengths. There's the really short ones and there's some longer ones. Yeah. But I just pull so much from my life that, it's so easy for me to, like the one story of the treasure hunters, for example, that I drew so much out of a trip that there was 4 of us guys took down to the southern states, and we ended up in Vegas in a hotel exactly. I didn't use their name, but it was exactly that kind of a hotel. And
when I was reading that story, that's what I thought, because on Facebook, you guys would post pictures of your trip.
Yeah.
And when I was reading that, I felt like that because I always imagined what your trip was like. Because it seemed like you're all such interesting guys that it seemed like it would be super interesting, weird, and, and all of those things.
It was like. So
talk about that trip just a little bit.
Huh?
Talk about that trip just a little bit.
Oh, we flew down and into to Vegas and that's where it started. Rented a car.
Yeah.
And off we went. We ended up. The idea was we were going to go through all the southern states, and not all the southern states, but we were going to touch as many as we could.
Yeah.
All the way along the Gulf Coast and end up in North Carolina. We were going to end up in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Well, we never quite made it to North Carolina, but we did make it to Florida. But this whole trip was just, how do I describe? And it was like 4 guys, and we all completely different. You know, Matt.
Yeah.
Darcy. And his brother-in-law.
Yeah.
We were all completely different guys. And you know what? We never had one argument the whole trip.
Is that right?
Yeah. We never had one argument.
Yeah.
We just spent hours in the car because we were just going.
Yeah.
And, you know, we spent a fair bit of time in Louisiana. And, but it was just, it was just this trip that, there's only one in a lifetime like that.
Yeah.
It was just so much fun. We were out like for 3 weeks, and usually I can be a little cranky sometimes. So like I was thinking like 3 weeks with, you know, Matt,
who by the way is on the podcast a couple episodes back,
which is great, you know. But him
and
I ended up being the roommates because we'd always get 2 rooms. So except for one night, and these guys are never ever going to forgive me for it. But anyway, we ended up in forget the name of the place, but anyway, it was Easter Sunday, and we pulled into this city, and everything was kind of closed, and so there's this place right on the road called Twin Cities Motel. And we've been normally staying in Motel 6s or Motel 8s. We're going on the cheap, right? So we were like, none of us really cared, as long as it was clean. So anyway, I was being a bit of a dork, and the lady that was working the shift at the desk she was almost like a gypsy, you know. She was like somebody like left over from the 70s. But anyway, she. I says, well, have you got a room for 4? And she says, well, as a matter of fact, she says, we've got the crew room. Oh, the crew room. So, well, let's have a look at this thing. And so she took us back, and it was a great big room. And it was like a barracks. 4 beds. And this 16-inch TV set was across the room. You needed binoculars to see. And Matt, like the next morning, Matt said, I says, I have to take a shower, but he used his flip-flops in the shower. It was that bad. But it was just this room, and so they've never actually forgiven me for this crew room in Twin Cities. So.
I don't know. That seems like that would fit in with what I guessed would happen.
Well, it was like so Matt, being a man of the world, you know, an international traveler, and Darcy's saying, I don't know, maybe there's bed bugs in this place. Yeah. Matt's just like, well, don't worry about the bed bugs. You just sleep on top of the bed, like. They don't attack you if you're sleeping, so they're only going to go after you if you get in between the sheets.
Oh my God!
So, anyway, but the funny the piece in the book about this hotel that we ended up in Vegas. Yeah. There was actually this Bears gathering there, and there was about 100 of these guys, big burly. Oh, you know really? How like Pee Wee Herman's Great Adventure, when he's in that that bar with those guys
Yeah,
who's
yeah,
dancing?
yeah.
That's exactly how it was. That's exactly how it was. And it was, and I had like, I'm just not a worldly guy, so I had no idea. I mean, I've seen movies of these guys, and I thought that's just Hollywood, right? But there's a really, there's
a community,
there's
definitely,
a community,
yeah, queer community.
So these guys were all from
bears.
southern states, and
Yeah.
they gathered, and they did it once a year.
Yeah.
And what I mentioned in there is a little bit of a pull on truth, but I guess the year before, they had booked it. It was a 2-part motel, like, but they booked the Bears had booked this thing, and somebody that was doing bookings there also booked this nuns gathering from all these so all these nuns, and these nuns ended up at the hotel at the same time as these Bears, and I guess it was just a cluster.
Oh no.
So a lot of it a lot of what's in there just pulls like from my personal experiences, eh?
Yeah.
And the one is near autobiographical.
Which one's that?
The one about the Christmas tale. Christmas tale, that actually happened to me.
So what, can you just summarize it real quickly?
Well,
just
yeah,
for
we had decided that a friend and I, when I first moved to Lethbridge, I was still really, I haven't drank for 20 some odd years, but I was still drinking a lot.
Yeah.
And so, and problematically as well. So anyway, one of the friends that I fell in with when I got here, I'm not a person that really makes friends real easy. Like
yeah, me either.
You know, so anyway, one of the fellows, he was an ass. There's no other word for it. So anyway, but we got to be friends and roommates actually for a while. But anyway, the one year he says, well, let's go up to the pass and cut down our own Christmas tree. And that was the fact of it. That actually happened. Well, when we headed out, we started drinking actually right across the street here. When Smitty's used to have the bar in there, we went in there first thing in the morning, like around 10 when they opened.
Yeah.
It wasn't at the Bay Point. Remember they used to have
Yeah,
the Bay Point too?
I do.
So anyway, so in the book it's at the Bay Point, but in reality it was over at Smitty's. And we started drinking like at 10 in the morning. So by the time we left the city, we were already 3 sheets to the wind.
Yeah.
He could always drink way more than me because he was a big boy.
Those were the days when we did end up drinking.
Oh,
I know. When I think of it now, right? Oh, and so this whole, like the driving thing, would never even remotely think of it now.
Like,
and yet, for some reason, in those days, good thing they're behind us.
Just,
but yeah.
It's just like, you didn't think of it back then, you know, and really there was like, now they have zero tolerance for drinking, and you know, you're going to lose your license for sure.
Yeah.
And so people are way, way, way more cautious now than, like, this thing goes back 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
So it was way more relaxed back then, and you didn't really care if you got caught. You maybe, you know, you may get a suspension, 24-hour suspension or something, but
I remember too, it'd be like, is there anyone else in the car that could drive, right? And then they would let that person drive home.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like, whether you had your wife or your friend, or it's like, well, are you sober enough? Okay, let them drive, be careful.
Yeah. And quite often you weren't a great arbiter of who was sober. Because you were all pretty much done.
Yeah.
So
okay, so for this trip though.
Up we went, and we ended up going to this place. I grew up in the past, so I had this idea that I know where the trees are, right?
Right.
So we ended up in the bar in the Green Hill Hotel in Blairmore. And sure enough, I ran into a whole bunch of guys I knew from years back. I worked in the mine, so there was a bunch of miner guys, eh? So anyway, come on, let's have some beer. So this went on so it was like 3 in the afternoon, I think, before we ever even got out of the bar. And if you've been to the past, the Green Hill Hotel is right next door to the liquor store. So out we go, and the liquor store is right there. So we went and got ourselves a bottle to brace ourselves because it's getting cold, right?
Yeah.
Like liquor's really good for when you're.
Yeah, when you have a song, you're going to get trees.
The best.
Good idea.
Anyway, yeah. So it was just like, so we hike into this place where I've visualized these beautiful Christmas trees.
Yeah.
From when I was 14 years old. So we get there, and of course, these trees that were this tall when I was 14 are now 20 feet tall. So we end up, and this is like completely, you'd be put in jail today for doing it. So we're going to top, you know what, we should just, there's some beautiful tops there, you know. So we're going to cut the tops off, and like, so, but we're just not going to climb, neither one of us are going to climb the tree.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's just cut the whole damn tree down, and that's what we did. Of course, when the tree fell over and we looked at the top, it was like, oh, there's a whole bunch of bare spots. I think we ended up cutting 5 or 6 trees down, and then we finally, like, we've got to, they're all bad, but let's pick the best of the bad ones. So these weren't great trees to start with. Then we dragged them out of there, and it was over rocks. It was through this little valley. We're dragging them over rocks and drunk and falling down on them, and it was like terrible.
Yeah.
And then we got back to the car, and we stuffed them in the car, hatchback. And of course they were sticking out, so I couldn't close the hatch. So, and it's about -15, -20 degrees. And we're driving back to Lethbridge. The trees,
Hour and a half away.
Hour and a half away. We get to Pincher Station.
Yeah.
The trees fall out the back of the house, rolling down the highway.
Oh my.
And so we finally got stopped and turned around. Now the trees are in really, really rough shape. So anyway, in the story, of course, the ending's a little different, but I was married to Jean at the time. We're just married. And so, any long and short story, when we got back to Lethbridge, there really was a party going on, and so Brad, my friend, says, well, let's go to this party. So yeah, okay, I'm drunk enough that makes sense. So we end up at this party, and everybody's doing dope and, you know, smoking a joint, and I'm not, that's just not my thing.
Yeah.
But that night it was my thing. So, you know, so I smoked a joint with this girl, and then decided, well, it's time. So they called me a taxi, and finally the taxi showed up, and he's parked out front, and I think it was Brad in there. He says, well, you know, your taxi's here, Rick. So out I go, stumble to this taxi, and I had to take a leak. So I'm leaning on the trunk of his taxi, and I'm peeing on his bumper. And he must have looked in his rearview mirror.
My God.
He looked in his rearview mirror and says, I'm not staying here with this guy. So he just put it in gear and took off. Well, I fell on the ground, and that's where I stayed for hours.
Oh, man.
So anyway,
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. I won't let the rest of the story out, but that was as close to there was some embellishments in there, of course, and the change of things, but you know, that actually was based on, and it was the last story I wrote for
was it?
Yeah. So, because I'd had it at 8 stories, and I was like, I think this is good enough. And, you know, Jean, oh no, you got more in you, Rick. Like, you got more in you. So I just sat on, and then of course this came, and I wrote it. But yeah.
Do you find that there's different times in your life where you like expressing through writing as opposed to painting, or are they always sort of come in and out of each other? You
know what's really strange? No, it's not strange. It's I think just my personality, my background. But if you've seen some of the art, and you have, I really have a problem just painting a painting of a horse or a cow. Or most of what I paint has a story.
Yeah.
Like
it's a narration of
there's
something.
There's a narration
still
involved, and there's a few that are just frivolous paintings that I feel like doing.
Yeah.
But 80% of what I paint has got some kind of like a metaphor or an allegory or whatever. There's a story there.
Yeah.
And the funny part is that that's changed over the years. And I began to just realize it when we moved to our studios out at McNally at the school there.
Yeah.
Which is out in the country. And it was a marked change because the different places that we painted in, and there were many, right from when I first met you in the Oliver building.
Yeah, yeah.
From there, it just, wherever I was painting reflected the work, or the work reflected where I was painting.
Yeah.
And so Oliver's paintings were significantly different, and the dark part of, like when I was painting in the old fire hall in the basement, they were very dark, broody, nasty paintings actually. And then like when I really noticed it though was when we went out. Now I'm painting like these pastoral scenes, like farmers and old cars and you know, like it's just like, my environment affects what I do, and it's a subconscious thing, and it's like there's still the storyline there.
I was gonna say I can still always see, you know, even with the latest one I can remember off the top of my head with the barn, like you can see definitely there's a story and a feeling of what's going on.
Yeah. And there's like a lot of it is, I guess, reminiscent of times gone by, and you know, and it's sort of, but it's sort of trying to bridge a time past to now and make people feel that, and I think it's been pretty good, you know. But the last 3 years, most of my work has been reflective of more of a rural tone to it. And
so when you look outside where your studio is, and when you're looking outside, are you looking? What sort of right out your window? Is it out a field? Is it out behind the highway?
Road, McNally Road runs right in front, and then there's a farm on the other side, and then on the other corner, there's a monster of almost a mansion of a house, right kitty corner.
Yes, I do know what you mean.
Yeah, and it's so, but it's place, not, and how do I describe it? It's place, not environment. Like, I know I'm in the country, but I'm not looking out the window
and painting
to feel that. I know that I'm no longer in the city, like that I'm not working in the city. So it's kind of like a place situation, like just like the fire hall was a place situation. It's like I didn't walk down there to do work and say, Jesus, this is like the most depressing thing I've ever been in, even though it was, you know, but
it was kind of charming though.
It had its charm, and so anyway, long and short, it's just kind of like where I am reflects what I do, and you know, and I've gotten the most joy out of the last 3 or 4 years out there, just being able to, more than anything, I don't really care if I don't paint, if I don't get a painting done in 3 weeks, that's okay. If it takes 3 months, I'm spending more time with the work, and you know, trying to get it to a more semi-realistic, like not photographic so much, but when people look at it, they can say, you know, I see that place. I see, you know, I don't need to stretch my imagination to visualize that place, you know. I'm maybe spoiling my viewers. I don't know.
Why do you think that is? Why do you? Because it's obviously something that's important to you.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the different kinds of work, like styles, I guess, if we say that. And there still is that aspect to it, for sure.
Yeah. And it's, sometimes I sit and I reflect and I think, maybe I'm just not good at doing abstraction or even interpreting. Maybe I'm just not good enough to do interpretive art, and maybe I haven't got that kind of a sensibility within me where, you know, I know there's some great artists in this town that can do you know, Eileen's a good example. She can do a floral and it's like, whoa, you know, like that's a very interpretive piece. I've never seen a bouquet of flowers look like that.
Right.
But damn it, that's cool.
Oh, yeah.
And I've tried that. I've even tried to paint like Robert Bechtel.
Yeah.
I can't. I can't even come close. It's like, this is garbage.
So do you think you are interpreting what you're doing as garbage, or is it garbage?
I don't
do you
know.
think it's because you're maybe uncomfortable with that, with your style, that to you don't give yourself credit?
Yeah. I am at times very uncomfortable with my inability to, oftentimes anyway, my inability to break out of that, like to, and but then the other side of me says I really don't want to do that either, you know, like I would rather do this. And so I look at like really good artists that I know that are like, a lot of them are interpretive artists, and I look and I say, gee, you know, I what I'm doing is kind of phony. Like, I'm just painting what I see, and what I'm seeing, my vision isn't like seeing an interpretation. It's the real thing, you know. And it's sort of the only thing that's kind of got me outside of that is painting to a certain scale. Like I could paint like a 16 by 20 or a 12 by 12, although I have. Yeah. But I scale to me means something. Right. I found out that it doesn't mean much to the buying public. No. So I stopped being large and decided it's still got some scale, but it's not. It's also scale that, you know, somebody can actually put in their home or if they want. But I'm happy that my work carries a message, and you know. They're also just very, well, they are very emotive, right? And so sometimes they have this whimsical kind of light feeling, right? Yeah. I particularly like those sort of like morphed sort of head ones, for lack of a better word, that were of people, but they sort of had these wonderful expressions and bodies, and they it was very emotive, and I really liked those ones. But even the one that was kind of the rural pastoral scene, the last one they were talking about, is very emotive. Like, you know, you really get a sense of what's happening there and or what might happen soon, right? Yeah. And so I would say that's something that's definitely, but it kind of makes sense in a way. I mean, I think we're all kind of like that, maybe as artists, with how we express ourselves. Yeah. Just for some people, they do different styles. However, I think because you're a writer too, that it kind of makes sense that with your paintings, there's going to be something that you want to tell. Yeah. You know, and even with your photographs that you're just installing, it's a simple picture of a doll's head, and yet the emotion that's going to be held there by the by the viewer. That's actually true, and even like I did one last year, maybe it was even the year before. Anyway, it was actually a rural scene. Yeah. And it was I haven't shown it other than I showed. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But anyway, it was a large painting, and it was two girls completely nude, and they're walking towards a pond on a farm.
Yeah.
There's an old truck there. I always throw an old truck or something, or a dog. I always like to throw a dog.
Those are your
yeah, dog or truck.
Yeah.
And anyway, I wanted to leave. I wanted to leave a question mark on this whole thing.
A literal question mark?
Well, I didn't, but I wanted to leave viewers with a question, like, what's going on here? Are these two lesbians, that are just out by themselves and going for a swim? Or are they sisters? Are they mother-daughter? Are they and they're holding hands, just gently holding hands.
Yeah.
And one's got a towel. One is obviously more mature than the other. And so I just left this as a question. And to me, it could be anyone.
Yeah.
It could be anyone. And it's so anyway, that kind of is a fun part of it, like leaving this unanswered question.
Yeah.
And the nudity is very discreet. They're kind of backs to the, some 2/3 profile on one of the girls. But anyway, so I left it out there. But so I got the piece juried into that a show last year, 2 years ago. It actually got juried into this show, and it was at one of the car dealerships here in the city.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, they did this thing, and they put up like good prizes,
Yeah.
And they were really, for 3 years, they were really they stopped doing it for some reason. But anyway, so this one made it into this exhibit. So I was kind of proud. This is going to be, so off we go there at this big opening night, and we go out there, and where's my painting? Where's my painting? And Jean says, I hate to tell you this. I says, what? She says, go over to that corner, and this is a 4x4 foot painting.
Yeah.
There was a back entrance or exit out of the emergency exit out of this showroom.
Yeah.
The hallway was about yay wide and about 12 feet long, and there it was. So, like there was no way you could view this painting from any more than this distant. So anyway, I was a little peeved with that, but, so there was other artists in there, and they had smaller work, and it was all over the place, and it was literally the biggest single piece in the show, but they stuffed it in this corner.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's like, and there was nothing really. I mean, I vacationed in Rome and places in Europe, and that kind of stuff is all over the place. Like even in the Catholic churches and that, there's and the Vatican, there was some modern paintings of nudes in the Vatican.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No, I don't know why we're so uptight about it. I had a friend who was a high school art teacher, and one of his kids entered into the SAG show and was chosen a couple of her pieces. And they were kind of collage, montage type things. And one had bare breasts, but it was from a statue where it was so innocuous, it was silly.
Yeah.
And there was a huge hubbub. And the SAG ended up saying, we can't do it because the little kids will see it.
Yeah.
And what is wrong with that, right? Yeah. We're still so botanical with
and this town is particularly so that way, and and it's some of the things that you really don't even like. I did a show at Casa, and it was a lot of. That's another thing I did was assemblage work, like, and so I did all these assemblage pieces, and none of them in any way, shape, or form did I find offensive.
Yeah.
But there was one piece that was in this show, and the lady went right down to the front desk and just like, that is just totally offensive. That should be out of there. And she would, and it was like they were like, what are you talking about? Like, nobody in their right mind found this offensive, but she did.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was like, why?
Yeah.
So, anyway.
I think we give in to all of that too easily. I think that's not right either.
Yeah.
You know, and because then kids aren't seeing art.
No.
And so they're not seeing a difference between pornography and a nude and an art or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's all put into one bucket, right?
Yeah.
Like it's all, filthy nude stuff you're not supposed to see until you're married, and
Yeah.
Just like, it's like that work there. It's like perceptions, and that's just I don't know. Like it's frustrating in a way.
Yeah.
But I don't know of anybody that, there was one artist in the city that made a practice of repeatedly painting nudes, and I think you know who it was.
Yeah.
But I've never been obsessed with doing that. I would think that if there was a piece that I wanted to project that involved that, like the two girls, then that's what it would be, you know? And so, it's just, it would have been, Sarah's got a piece that she bought from me, and it's about a woman in almost a sort of a semi-puritanical look, but she's the foreground, and the original piece had a nude walking away, totally nude, just a back shot.
Yeah.
And long before Sarah actually bought that from me, like, I had people like, I really like that, but so I hate myself for it to this day, but I actually put a dress on her, like a nice dress, like a mini skirt dress, like. Yeah. But it was like, okay, well, we give ourselves up to certain mores in your community, I guess.
Yeah.
But it didn't make a difference it only made a difference up here for me that, if I wanted, and Sarah didn't really care, because when she saw it and wanted it, it was long after I'd actually done this.
Yeah.
And
so she's not going to clean it off, really?
No,
now that we know it's there,
Don't tell her. Don't tell her. She'll do the Mr. She's going to do the Mr. Bean thing with Whistler's mother.
You never know. We want photographic evidence if you do. But I know. Well, kind of speaking, actually, before I go there, I want to know, it seems like you just do whatever sort of, and maybe do you go through stages where, like, now I'm doing assemblages and I'm kind of in on that for a while, and then, or do you sort of tackle everything kind of as you're doing it?
I get fixated.
Yeah. Like
the assemblage work, for example, I worked on that for an entire summer. I just got, I don't want to paint anymore, but this whole idea really does interest me.
Yeah.
And I'd never done assemblage work before, or montage, or
I didn't get to see that work.
Yeah.
So that was, and you said that was at CASA, hey?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I missed that one.
And now some of it is in my yard.
Yeah.
And some of it's been sold. Some of it's still hanging around my studio.
Yeah.
The problem you have with that kind of stuff is number one is portability. Number two, it's longevity. A lot of it is you know, typical of artists, and you probably know as well as I do, you do a body of work, you show it somewhere, and then it's like, I can't show that again. Like, you know, like
Yeah.
I've shown that already, like, yeah, to maybe 150 people.
Yeah, yeah.
But you just sort of, okay, time to move.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Do you find you apply to quite a few different
no, I
shows
don't.
of town? You don't?
I
okay.
don't. No,
And do you
I've-
consciously not do that?
consciously, yeah. Well, I met with I tried to get into a lot of like artist-run galleries, say in Calgary and Edmonton,
Yeah.
and I just repeatedly, to the point where some of them I didn't even get refusal letters. Like they were that rude.
Oh, wow.
And so I just, you know what, like maybe what I do isn't for that, you know. I find my audience is local, and I do, like I've done exhibits up in the past, and you know, but I think they're not looking for what I do. That's kind of my take on it, you know.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just trying to protect my ego. I don't know.
Well, or I mean, yeah, lots of times it depends what work you exhibited or sent them, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
You never know
Yeah.
what it is, but
yeah, and it's like it was really neat to do that assemblage thing, but then you know you move through it. You move, and I still get like 2 years later, 3 years later, I still, you know, I'm like, I could make. Make something from that, you know. Something really interesting, you know.
Yeah.
Like we were in Edmonton, and I was doing a book signing up at Audrey's in Edmonton, and right next door to Audrey's is this Ambassador restaurant, and it's a serious greasy spoon.
Oh,
but
cool.
Matt said, Rick, they make the best breakfast. Go there.
Yeah.
So we did, and I was at breakfast, and I was paying the bill, and behind the counter they had a whole thing of chocolate bars, and one of them were cherry blossoms.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I hadn't seen cherry blossoms forever.
Yeah.
I know they still make them, but somebody's told me they've seen them around here and there.
Yeah.
But I hadn't seen cherry blossoms almost since I was like a kid.
Yeah.
So I bought 3 cherry blossoms, and we went back to the hotel that night. I just pigged out on these cherry blossoms, but there's the boxes sitting there. And the one thing that always struck me about cherry blossoms was that yuck that's in there would always get on my fingers, and it would run over everything.
Yeah.
So Jean says, I says, I'm keeping these boxes, they're little square boxes. So I'm just going to keep these. So I got back to Lethbridge, and I set them up on a piece of wood, 3 of them, and then I used acrylic medium, and this pink stuff is running out of the boxes and off the edge of this wooden thing, and it's like, I really like it, you know, like I kind of like that. That was just like, you know, it was sort of half-assed inspired, but you know. Like,
if I had seen that, you know immediately what it is, right? Like anyone that's seen him in Heather, that's immediately.
that cherry, that stuff that they put in there was just a mess. Like, I never ate one without getting it all over my hands.
So was that in the assemblage one?
The
cherry blossom? No?
No, it didn't make the assemblage one. It was
I
made it after, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I still have it. Still have it. So.
Yeah.
And you know, like, so it was like, that part was, and then I stopped doing that because it was becoming a storage issue. Like.
Yeah.
And.
Like it often does as artists, right?
Yeah. I did this monster, and I didn't have to make it that big. I really didn't. Anyway, I was driving along out in the country, and I look in the ditch, and there's this really screwed up old wrecked piece of plywood there that had a hinge hanging off it, and I was like, I'm going to take that, you know. So I took it, and then I had a whole bunch of this barn board, because I know where to get barn board because it's
Right.
in the country, right? So I had this barn board, and that was in that show, and so this piece ended up being a statement about, because again, everything I do seems to have a statement.
Yeah.
But it was a statement about how, you know, we don't have a food shortage in the world. We have a delivery of food storage.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about the lack of production.
It's
the
about getting
lack
it to people.
of distribution. So this thing is like an old wooden granary with a hole in the bottom, and I actually had wheat kind of coming out of. I got some wheat from somewhere. I forget where I got it. Anyway, this wheat, and I mixed it with acrylic medium and put it down, and then I put a little mouse there, eating the. But this whole thing is huge.
Really?
And you know, it's in my alley now. It's up against my. If you ever drive through, so it's in my alley. I couldn't bring myself to destroy it.
Yeah.
But it was way too big to. It was just a nightmare to.
Yeah.
Walk around, but I just liked the message so much. And
yeah.
I've had it in my yard now for 2 years. Some little animal, some poor little animal, got in and decided it wanted to eat the grain. So the grain's all gone. It was like that animal, whatever it was that ate that grain, must have a real bad tummy by now.
Oh, gee.
So anyway, So and then again, worked on to the montage thing, and then the photo work I did. I've done some just straight black and white photo work, and you know.
And do you use like Casa with the darkroom or anything, and actually develop it?
No, I just they're all digital, and I've actually some of them I've printed myself, and others I've had done like I generally use Donna Billick to you know Donna like.
No, I don't think so, because the last name doesn't sound. Maybe I do.
Yeah,
right?
She was here for quite a long time. She's out since moved to Calgary, but she moved up to the Crow's Nest Pass and opened an art gallery up there.
Yes, I do know who you mean now.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
So she's got one of these Gillis printers. And large formats. So she is like.
Does she still?
Yeah.
I'll have to get a hold of her.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she's an artist. So like she I just trust her with printing it. I've had printing done other places, and you know, you made it too dark, and you know the problem with any of this digital work is quite often what you see on your monitor isn't what it actually is.
Yeah.
Donna knows this. You know, she has that sense, like that artistic, and she'll phone me up or send me a quick email and say, Rick, I got to lighten that up a little bit. It's filling in here, or you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and she's part of the process.
Nice.
She's not just somebody I'm just sending work to. Like it becomes
She sees your vision as well.
So I do trust her, but so I do like, and Jean's photo work, she gives it all to Donna. So,
right.
Yeah. But
I have some stuff that's large format that I printed, and I've been like asking everyone, because Eileen Murray used to have one, and then she got rid of.
Oh, did she?
Yeah. Oh, she did some amazing stuff that she used her own printer to do, but it was a big one. Yeah. But have you always done art? Like when you were a kid, were you an artistic kid?
No. I you know, like that's no. I came back. I think I just came back to it. Like I've always had that kind of, I think, creative sensibility.
Right.
That everybody, gets built into people. But I just didn't pursue it. You know, I was doing other things. I was, number one, raising family, and doing my job, and so yeah, I at one point in my life, I was related to quite a prominent artist. He was my father-in-law, business partner actually for a while, and he was a very prominent artist. He just died last week. Up in the Crow's Nest Pass. He made his living as an artist for all of his most of his adult life. Anyway, so I had that influence, but I always laugh because I can recall maybe I was always a doodler.
Yeah.
You know, even though my drawing skills really suck,
Mm-hmm.
but I always like to do.
Yeah.
But I remember, I think it was about grade 7. I was totally bored with what was going on in class, but I'm doodling in my thing, and I drew this picture of this guy wheeling a wheelbarrow around, and he had a big penis that was so big it had to carry it in the wheelbarrow. And of course my teacher got it and
didn't see it as the artistic
no, never saw an artist in the making at all. It was just like, you're out of here.
Quit drawing dicks.
That was just kind of funny. I was thinking, but maybe that was just the very early beginning of it all. I don't know. But I've always had, even in my artist statement when I was like just into it 5-6 years, because I'm a real latecomer to art, really, in that respect, as a doer.
Right.
And but you know, it was kind of like, I don't know how you say it, but it's a kind of a frustrating place to be, where you have these creative thoughts and you have these creative ideas, but you don't have the skill sets to carry it forward. You know, you say, I'd love to draw or paint that, and use. So without any kind of training or whatever, you just start, and it's like, you know, this is terrible. So, you know, you had to actually develop some skill sets, and once that started happening to me, that's kind of opened me right up to you know, I like now I'm retired, but I also consider myself not to be retired. I consider myself to be like
an artist,
another career as a practicing artist.
Yeah.
You know? And it's funny, like around Lethbridge now, because people don't know my background, where I was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But which is maybe a good thing, you know. but it's now, people know me for what I'm doing right now, for I've done for the last 15 or 20 years, and that's being an artist. Yeah. Which is kind of cool.
It is kind of cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can be in the cool kids group.
You're doing it for the chicks.
And your I forget where that goes. Right away I was thinking Dire Straits. What is it? And your chicks for free.
Exactly.
My MTV and my whatever.
Money for nothing.
Nothing for money. It should be nothing for money.
So it's but it's been fun. I if I wasn't really enjoying it, I wouldn't do it. And it brings me, like, it just is a joyful thing to do. You know, I just really, I don't know, I can't even imagine what I would be doing if I wasn't doing art. I can't. I don't know what I'd be doing. You know, I've got friends that aren't artists, and they spend a lot of time watching TV, watching sports on TV and stuff like that. That can't be my life.
No.
You know, and for a long time I was a very athletic person, so, you know, like I had, sports was kind of, you know, I was going to the gym and skiing and playing tennis and biking and all that sort of stuff, but you can't do that forever. Like I still do, but I've backed off a lot, you know. So having the art in my life is just been a real, and it started, well, Jean has been painting all her life. I was going to ask,
like, how did you guys meet?
Well,
and were you an artist when you met, or were you?
No, she was, I wasn't, and And so as we were developing our relationship, you know, and I'm still skiing and playing tennis and riding my bike and going to the gym and everything, and she was like, you know, maybe there's something that we can do together. Would be a nice idea, you know, because she was completely not, you know,
into
like,
the sports and stuff. Yeah.
So she's talked me into like trying my hand at art, and it's turned out to be kind of, it's a neat thing in some respects, and yet like we're almost like in certain parts of our life we become competitive in a weird, strange way. Like we both support one another entirely. Yeah. And yet there's this competitive thing. Like if I sell a piece of art, I just crow, and then she does the same thing, you know. And it's light, and but it's there's this element of competitiveness underscoring. Yeah. But I still, you know, we do the same with each other, but more me with her. Like she'll walk up to a painting I'm working on, and I just know, I can tell them. Like, she's going to tell me what I'm done wrong here. And like, you know, and usually she's right. Yeah. Which really ticks me off. Annoying, isn't it? Yeah. But, you know, so it's like, so we have a big fight over that. And then I do. And then you change it. Right? So, but it's and then the other thing with having our studios out there at the school, we use it as a nice, like she goes out days, I don't. And some days we share, but we try and have different days so that we have space between us, because you know we can get on each other's nerve. Yeah. I have one, and you're on it. Yeah, you're rubbing it wrong. Can relate to that one. Yeah. But it is neat, because you guys in a lot of group shows, and you both have you guys ever done a collaboration, like on her and piece? Yeah, like on like one piece or on a show. Oh, you know what I'm wondering? How would you guys be if you were both painting the same piece? We actually one time I painted this awful painting. Yeah. Of somewhere, it was around the lake somewhere. It was a landscape, and it was just terrible. So she said, you know what, Rick, let's just relax with this thing. She says, let's have some fun with it. And so we just got our brushes out, and she slapped some stuff on, and I would put stuff on, and we did this for a couple hours. And to my mind, it was still a pretty awful painting. But we said, okay, it's much better than what it was. So we just leave it. And neither one of us wanted to sign it. So we signed, we said, let's just paint under a collaborative name. So we used the word juxtaposition. So we just called it JUX. So we signed Jux in the corner. And you know something? Like, this lady came along about a week later and bought it from us. Really? And so I'm saying, like, what do we tell her, hon? Like, what do we say to her? Like, that who? And so we kind of determined, if she doesn't ask, we're not going to say. Yeah. So she took the painting. She was completely happy with it, hung it in her office. That must be you. Oh, damn it. No? Is that yours? No, it's mine. Yeah. Well, it'll probably stop, right? Yeah, it'll stop. There. I knew better. I should have left that jacket outside. No worries. Yeah. Anyway, so it's yeah. Well, it's kind of neat that you have
her was sort of one of your sort of first eyes, right, on your writing.
Yeah.
Because I know, as opposed to my art, my writing is, I'm much, I don't know if self-conscious is the right word, but maybe I'm more, I don't know, I feel more self-conscious, I guess, of it.
Yeah.
And so with my writing. So how is it, like someone coming in there who's pretty tough with it?
She's, what's kind of neat is she understands that she's not a writer, and she isn't. And, you know, however, you know, she has made some really serious contributions to, she doesn't know what's right, but she knows what's wrong.
Right.
You know, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, she knows there's something wrong with that, Rick. Like, it just doesn't do it to me, you know? Like, so when she says that, like, you know, she's probably reflecting the opinion of the average person that's going to read it, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's that. That's the situation that we run into with the writing part. Like, like this one, the last one though, we came to blows a few times over, not blows, but
no, I don't.
You know, we actually, it got to one point where she's like, enough. I don't want anything more to do with this book. Don't ask me to do anything. And so about 2 days later, it's like, well, let me have another look.
Yeah.
Just like, you know, so it's like it's been a, like, I understand that, and she does too, that she can't write, but, and the editing is done in a kind of a, she's more mechanical. Like, you don't need these, you don't need this and in here, and so that sort of stuff. Not necessarily at the proofreading level, but sort of a kind of a hybrid between the two, editing, proofreading. Like, So, so it's been a really, we've had some good go-arounds with it, you know, but
it came out well.
At the end, you know what, I'm kind of pragmatic about it, you know what, like, it's part of the pain. So, you know, because you're a writer. I haven't seen what you've written, but, you know, like,
I've only written short stories and poetry.
But you probably understand that when you finish something, you know, it becomes, it's you. Right? It's you. So any incursion on that, of course, you're, if you're anything like me in that regard, any incursion in that, you immediately become a little defensive. You're defending your baby, right? Like, so.
But I feel more that towards my writing than a painting.
Really?
Someone could critique a painting and say something perhaps even fairly harsh, and I'd be like, okay. And say it with my writing, and I'm like, oh, you know, like I just feel like, oh, it's that, you know, and especially if it's a tough one, I find it I'm much closer to my writing. So
that's strange, eh?
I guess, where I don't know why, but there's different forms of art. I guess.
and you know, like I'm not so good at what I do that I don't invite or welcome, you know, critique. Like, I've had Matt and Darcy, I've given them the manuscripts of all three, actually.
Oh, is that right? Nice.
Darcy had all three and Matt had two. And they give me, like, and I unfortunately, it's done, they do it more kindly than Jane does, I guess.
Like,
so I don't get myself, and a lot of it is just suggestion, and, you know, maybe this could be a little, you know, but I
was just thinking it would be an interesting thing, or at least interesting to me, to see a book. You know how they have the books of the correspondence that goes back and forth between this writer and that writer, or and you're sort of reading these letters or reading, and it'd be almost interesting to read sort of snippets of the book at that stage and then see different, you know, inputs, or I don't know. I love things like that where it's correspondence back and forth, you know, and it's sort of this interesting almost private conversation that you're privy to,
Yeah,
right? Because it's not actually one's imagination at this point. Now we're giving you what we think.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, like, maybe painting and art is a little different than writing in that respect, but you know, like I found that writing is just really more collaborative than than painting. Like you know, like, how often have you finished a painting and had said, "What do you think of this?" and had somebody come and say, "I think you need a red stripe there." Yet it doesn't happen, right?
Yeah. No.
but if you write,
yeah,
you say,
that's
you know
very
what?
true.
I think you could flesh this out a little more. You know?
That's so true. See, that's what I mean. It's different. It's like this input carries more weight or something, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's a strange thing. Sort of. Are you musical then? Like, I'm trying to think. Me either.
Oh God, I am not a musical bone in my whole body.
No.
My mother taught me how to play the harmonica when
Oh,
I was a little boy.
Yeah.
And when she passed away, that was part of her. I didn't take much out of the estate when she passed away, but she specifically left me her 2 harmonicas, which I still have.
But, very
and
cool.
every now and then, I just love listening to blues harmonica when it's done well. It's so cool.
Yeah. You can feel it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And yet, I can't. I've tried to, and I've got the right harmonica. It's an E, I think.
Yeah.
And it's what they call a jazz harmonica. But do you think I can get that sound out of it?
Yeah.
No, I've actually annoyed the crap out of Jean because I go on Google and because they have you can get little lessons
right.
And it's like okay, you got to start with repeatedly till that becomes comfortable.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I'm doing that, and that's Jean's like, I'm trying to watch it.
You know, I think you should take that and you should go out into a field.
Exactly.
I honestly do, because then you can be as loud as you want. You can do it. No one will hear you. If the cows go running, well, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
My dad used to say, because he used to play harmonica, you know, just at home, but he used to say that you breathe the words in it, so you almost like it would like be
You're
saying
talking.
like almost like you'd have, you know, sort of a rather than just the.
You're not just blowing. Yeah. You're speaking, and the other thing that he's dead right. Like, you're almost talking into it.
Yeah.
But the other little trick that I learned in this lesson was that the intake is more important to blues blowing than the out blow. Like, the out, more of the sound is developed from the sucking than the blowing.
Oh, really?
It's interesting, and it makes sense actually. They're a whole different. It's a whole different set of notes, right? Like, but my youngest son took piano. That was the closest I ever got to actually playing anything, just watching him. Yeah. And so he was really good. He was really talented, had a good teacher, and we moved to Cranbrook, and I had my boys with me for a couple of years there. So I signed him up with this really, you know how they have this archetypical piano teacher woman that's just a shrew? Well, this was her. But she was the most respected classical piano teacher in Cranbrook. So, I'm going to sign Jeff up. And he was just a little guy, you know. And he'd done so well before. And she was harsh. So I would go and be there when he was taking his lesson, just sit back and listen. And she was really hard on him, and he was scared of her, like really scared of her. He was maybe 10, 9. Yeah. Because he would be sitting there and he'd be doing his scales,
Yeah.
And his hands would be there in position, and his hands would be shaking.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, he was scared of her. And so I'd have him practicing at home because we had a piano.
Yeah.
And when he was home, he had this, got it down, and he'd do his scales, and he got with her, he just seized up. So anyway, this is a kind of a funny, sad, funny story. But anyway, I thought, you know what, like, the only way I'm going to really do this right, I'm going to take lessons from her myself. So I signed up for lessons. So here's Rick, about 45 years old.
Fingers shaking over the keys.
This is not working at all. This is just not working. She's terrifying me as much as she's terrified my son. So
oh my gosh.
I pulled him right out of lessons, and I got him in with a younger girl that was really nice and sweet and more of a recreational.
Which is all you need at that age.
Yeah. But by then, Jeff was done. It had been
ruined.
In his head, like, the piano would be sitting in my living room, and he literally would walk. You know how a dog will walk around something that isn't familiar to him? That's how Jeff was with his piano. Oh, it was, So, and he's never, and I said, like, Jeff, when you go to university, you can make a nice little living just doing lounge work, like. And I tried to show the upside of this, but no. So as the end result of this whole story is there's nobody in the Gillis family
who has any musical talent whatsoever,
any musical ability at all.
Yeah. No, music hasn't. I remember I took flute in high school, like every girl did, and played and wanted to play it after, but it was like always flat. But I couldn't hear it. I couldn't tell. Playing away, and so I love instruments. I love singing. I love all of that. But I haven't got a lick of talent at all.
No.
And in fact, I can't draw, and so I was always terrified to paint.
Yeah.
Or at least I can't draw how I can't make. Mom draws very well.
Yeah.
And paints very well, and it looks like that.
Yeah.
If there's a car, it looks like a car. And whereas mine would, so I never wanted to paint because I was scared of that, or even take art, which is why in university it was kind of this. Oh, art is all kinds of things.
Yeah, it isn't
I don't have
just
to
drawing.
be able to draw a Saint Bernard.
Yeah.
I can't.
You're like me in a lot of ways. I can't draw.
Yeah.
Worth a darn.
No.
Yeah.
But then you learn,
Yeah.
sort of what else you can do and what's important and what's not important, and
Like I was reading a biography of de Kooning.
Oh yeah.
And when he was over in Holland, before he jumped on a ship and stowed away and come to America, but when he was in Holland, he went to some really prestigious art academy. 3 years of drawing.
Oh wow.
3 years of drawing.
So maybe if you and I had that, we might be able to draw.
I'm like, okay, like, how much drawing can you learn?
Yeah.
So.
It is amazing. But then by then who knows? You could draw photographically, I imagine. I don't know.
Yeah, he was. But they taught very classically, I guess. And you didn't pick up a paintbrush until you were done your drawing part, You had to be a draftsman first.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not the way it is now. It's like, it just isn't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you and I are both kind of the same. We came to art late.
Mm-hmm.
We always were kind of arty growing up, perhaps, right?
Yeah,
it was always, and I don't know, I think there's maybe a different appreciation, but also, at least for me, wanting to try all different things, and because I haven't done it, so it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, now
Yeah.
I've tried this, I should try that. And
combined with and combined with having the time now to do it. Like,
yes.
you know, I was just so glad when you said that, you know, you're giving up the store.
Yeah.
But you were coming right back into art, and it's like, yes,
Yeah.
that's the best thing ever, you know.
It is, and art is it's nice to be able to get lost into something sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And when times are tough, or you just need a distraction, right? So
well, oftentimes too, you know, and I got this from, you know, you started the store, and I always had this feeling, and I think I had the feeling right, that you were treating that as an art project. Like, you were into it for almost like performance.
It was, for the first 3 years especially, it was an installation.
Yeah.
Like, it was absolutely an installation.
Yeah.
And it always kind of surprised me that, then, you know, we also do have to do his paperwork.
Oh yeah, there's taxes to pay.
The performance isn't done today. I have to actually close shop. No, but it was. And then both Paul's parents got ill, and so we ended up were with them for a good year and a half.
Yeah.
And was away from that. And while I was away, when I came back, it just never had that same
fun was gone. Eh?
Yeah, it was. I think it was almost too much. I don't know, but it went after that.
Yeah.
So it was.
Well, even your mom said the bottom went out of it. Like, after that, he says, Laura Lee just kind of lost the drive to
it is, and you know, you really needed to have it because times were tough. So you know, I just heard Plum just now closed.
Yeah. Oh really?
So I know she had tried to come back after COVID and tried to do a few different things, but it's just so hard right now trying to do things. But
I couldn't even imagine. I'd been in business. I've owned my own newspaper, and so I know where you're at with running a business.
And where was your newspaper?
Up in the past.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, weekly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it ran I sold it after about 11 years.
Oh, wow.
And the fellow that bought it ran it for several more years, and then they sold it out to a chain, which that's where it stops, you know. And so they actually finally closed down 2 years ago after about 40 years of running. It had a long run, but not by newspaper standards. Like, newspapers are supposed to last forever, right? But it just didn't make it, and of course the economy up there is not the greatest. And so there was 2 newspapers in a community as small as the Crow's Nest Pass, so it's just it wasn't. And of course, there's nothing there. Like, the business isn't there now. Like there was when I was in my heyday. But, so I know how you feel about when that thing isn't there. Like, I was just driven to the point of exhaustion, and that's sort of the exhaustion is what the divorce didn't help either. It kills me. You know, but it was just I'm done. I'm done here. It's like going forward is just a task.
And I mean, it was taking away from art, right? Because it just leaves you, you know, sort of with nothing, or sort of with this disappointing type feeling. So, it'll be nice to get into trouble again and make some more art and
I just loved what you were doing downstairs there about 4 months ago. I was just like, Jesus, like, Laura Lee's just there, like, she's in the space, like, this is awesome. Like,
that was different. See, that was working on the same canvas, so but
that was so neat. I was like, she's like, well, maybe I just jump in there with her. Like,
that would have been so good. I would have loved that. That would have been great. Should have left some brushes there just to see who might. I bet you if we left them strategically enough, people might come.
I'm sure. And had that in, you know, like that inviting look on your face. Like,
yeah. Kelly and I had a show at the one beside the Tongue and Groove, that space.
Oh,
that
yeah.
The Blankettes did it, and then Trapdoor took it over after. So anyways, when it was still the Blankettes, her and I had a show in there, and we were in the 2 front windows, and the performance was we just had music on, and we were blindfold, and then we were just sitting there.
Yeah.
And so then the crowd was just looking. Well, and we had I had my glass of wine there, and which wasn't there specifically for that, but I had a glass of wine and lip stuff, I think.
Yeah.
And so then when you're blindfolded and people are there, you can hear them, and they're looking at us like waiting for something to happen. And we weren't. Well, all of a sudden someone comes and takes my lip stuff and starts putting it on my lips. It was just the weirdest, creepiest feeling, and I didn't know what to do, and I'm like, and they sort of started caring for me, like, and here's your wine, and here, and they started, and so it was just like, you just never know what's gonna happen, because I didn't think really anything was gonna happen. I thought kind of the performance would be them, right? And it turned out it was, but yeah, you just never know what your audience is going to do, and
that's
sometimes
interactive to a whole new level.
It was, just try that sometimes, Rick. Just put your blindfold on and then get Jean to put some lipstick on you and see how it is.
No.
A whole different thing. But well, it was nice talking to you today.
Yes,
We
this was
meandered
great.
all over.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how long we talked.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll split it over a couple episodes.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'll ask you for some links of some different, so that we can see some of your art. People can go and kind of see the different things and where they can get your books and that kind of thing. Because it'd be nice if people could even just see a couple of the images of the stuff you do to kind of relate it with the chat.
I've got a website and
that'd be perfect.
And I've got a spot on Facebook that I
what I want to talk to you about before I let you go. Was this summer you sort of had a purge of some different pieces.
Yeah.
And by that I mean you had decided however many pieces.
Yeah.
And maybe just tell, because you had a bonfire, right?
Well, I did, and it was a sizable bonfire.
I bet it was.
I pre-selected, I think it was 14 pieces, and I had these pieces for a long time, most of them.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were from my dark period, I guess I could say that.
Yeah.
And quite unsaleable, some of them. I knew they were never going to sell. And then there was others that were kind of borderline, but all big pieces.
Yeah.
And I just literally ran out of storage room, and I just I can't go on doing this. I just can't. So I'm like, one way or another, these things are they're leaving my possession.
Yeah.
So I basically put the thread out there. I've got 14 pieces. Here they are. Any one of them you can buy for $200. Yeah. And I sold half.
Oh, good.
Which was kind of cool. I sold half. And so there was about maybe seven or eight left, I think. Well, I think I threw in another one that I just wanted to get rid of.
Yeah.
So there was 8 pieces, and then I went over to Copeland's farm, and he's got a big burning pit there. And threw them all on there, and didn't even have to throw gas on it. Just the oil.
I
just started them up, and God, before long, it's just. And I was like, I've got a movie of it. Actually.
I was going to ask you. Must have videotaped it.
Jean videoed it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was thinking, this is going to take. Oh golly, this is going to take maybe 3 hours to get all these paintings burnt. Half an hour later, they're all gone. Yeah,
is that right? So they burnt that fast?
Like that.
And how did it feel?
There was once I made the decision.
Yeah, that's okay. I think it won't actually come through our mics.
Yeah. Once I made the decision.
Yeah.
It became real easy. my hope was that I would have sold more,
Right.
but I'd made the decision they were going to be gone. And so it was only maybe about 2 weeks ago that I was like, where is that piece?
Oh, and it was, oh, really?
Because I actually like that piece. Yeah. It was like, no, it's too late to like any of that stuff, Rick. It's gone, So anyway, like, but it was cathartic. It truly was. It wasn't like I felt like I got a new start. But it felt like I had some elbow room now, like.
And maybe talk for people who might not understand the idea of burning it rather than giving them away.
Well, my whole idea is, you know what, if it isn't worth $200 to somebody, it's worth zero.
Yeah.
And if it's worth zero, at the end of the day, your art, you do want your art to be out there. You don't want to just paint and have it stuffed in a dark room.
Right.
Like you do want people to buy it or appreciate it one way or another. Mm-hmm. And so, like, it's funny because Cheryl Baxter said the same thing. Like she agreed with me. Mm-hmm. She says the smartest thing you did was burn that stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you give it away, it has no value.
Yeah.
If you burn it, it still has no value. But you know what? It's not perceived as having no value. And actually, I've had people say, "What you burnt your?" I think one of your Facebook
person on Facebook. Yeah.
You didn't really burn. Yeah, I did. Yeah. and it felt good.
Why
doing
didn't you paint over them?
A lot of them were. Most of them actually were done on masonite.
Oh, okay.
And they were heavy. They were awkward.
Yeah.
And they were just. I took all the hanging gear off.
Yeah.
But they were just. That was the other thing. They were just brutally heavy.
Yeah.
They were just really heavy. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
well, I just had to squeeze that in because it was something that I found interesting and understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well,
thanks again.
It was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.